to the Southern Housing Podcast. Today we're here to talk about tenancy fraud. According to the National Fraud Authority, tenancy fraud costs £900 million every year to the public purse. It's the second highest fraud in the country, and it's estimated that between 3% and 5% of all social housing stock is affected by fraud. This is set against a housing crisis where over 132,000 families are living in temporary accommodation, and that includes over 170,000 children. So what are we doing to get these homes back for the people who really need them? We have our Tenancy Fraud Team, Jessie, Hema, Deborah and Sarah, to tell us more. Welcome, ladies. Can you talk us through the different types of tenancy fraud to start and why this happens? Jessie, maybe you could answer that question.
Sure. So tenancy fraud covers quite a wide variety of different types. Subletting being the main one that everybody jumps to when they think about tenancy fraud. But of course, it's not just subletting. There's failed succession requests, failed assignment requests, not using your property as your main home, and obviously subletting it to others. So it can be quite varied, and even to family members, where the monies aren't changing hands. It's still subletting if a tenant actually gives up possession of it to somebody else, and that's what tenancy fraud essentially is: people not using it as it was intended, or leaving their homes empty.
Do you know what the scale of tenancy fraud is within Southern Housing at the moment?
Tenancy fraud is, well, we don't exactly know, of course, how much tenancy fraud is being committed because we're never really able to see it all. But we are tackling tenancy fraud really robustly here at Southern Housing. We have expanded our team to address all tenancy fraud matters. So we're checking applications. We're ensuring that all referrals come to our team. We're dedicated in looking at every case that comes to us. We're qualified in what we're doing. And the scale will be quite large because we have a lot of properties. And as you stated in some of those figures, 3 and 5% of all stocks likely to be linked to tenancy fraud. So there in itself, it's showing we have 77,000 properties, and therefore we probably have an awful lot of tenancy fraud to look into.
Why is it happening, do you think? Is it greed? What is the reason behind why tenancy fraud is happening?
It's a mixture of everything, really. The current climate, the housing crisis leads to that, and definitely adds to the crisis. It adds to people are making money, of course, from the crisis. So it's such a huge commodity to have a tenancy. And a social housing tenancy is so valuable to some people. And of course, if you're not going to do the right thing and return a property that you don't need, or don't make an application in the first place, if you don't need it, then you are going to be depriving those people who actually need these social tenancies. And it happens when people and landlords don't have a dedicated resource to tackle it. And they may turn a blind eye in some occasions, thinking there's no fraud here, which of course a report recently has showed that is what happened. And people don't want to accept that actually. Sometimes landlords want to have tenants that are quiet, and if they don't know who's there, essentially the rent's getting paid, and therefore what's the problem? But actually, the problem is a huge problem. It's a moral problem, and it's a problem that we all have to tackle because you can't turn a blind eye. We have to address it. People who are assessed for housing, and they're assessed on the basis of telling the truth, and that's what we have to focus on. So yeah, sorry if I've gone off that, but it happens for lots of reasons. Yes, people are greedy, absolutely. People are opportunists, and people do things also because they're forced into it. So it's about looking at every case that we see and why it's happened and how we can deal with it best.
Thank you for that, Jessie. Hema, I just had a question for you. What's the impact of tenancy fraud on Southern Housing and our residents?
Hi, yeah, I mean, look, it has a severe impact our residents in so many ways. Tenancy fraud, as we know, is not victimless crime. It affects everyone. It denying people of home, especially families of homes where they're in dire needs of somewhere to stay. We have a massive crisis across nationally. Actually, it's not just within Southern Housing. Costs money to people. I think Jessie's covered it. Costs money to put them in temporary homes. And if we don't have those properties ready to be given to people in genuine need, then they're being housed in temporary accommodation for many years. But within social southern housing, we realise that if we've got people that aren't meant to be in our properties, it may cause antisocial behaviour issues. The resources that we'd be putting for our tenants can be then pushed elsewhere. So we're not using our resources where we need to. There's a cost implication with regards to that. The repairs, that, as I said, the repairs could be quite astronomical in costs, and then we're using that money to be repairing for our subtenants rather than our residents. I think that's just some of the issues that we have and the effects that it has on southern housing residents.
And Hema, you've been investigating for a long time. Do you see any particular trends? Are there any particular areas where we see more of a problem with this, and do we know why?
Those areas. Do you know what? It could happen anywhere. It's not just like particular areas, but there are in certain cases there. Sort of, if you're near certain good locations, people do rent out, like sublet those properties, but I don't think there's any particular trends in that. I don't know if Jessie got any more details on any particular trends that we have, but I do think it happens across the board, and in certain areas sometimes it's just being sublet to family and friends, where in others there's sublets to people and then actually make profit from the rentals.
Of course, we've got the issue with the creation of Airbnb and different other platforms like that. Is this something that we've been affected by? Do we see our properties on those sites being advertised?
Yes, I have to say yes, we do, and we are working very hard to try and stop that. We do have several ongoing cases where Airbnb lets and other short-term lets and our property are being advertised on those platforms, and there is a problem. But yeah, it is something, and we deal with them in the same way with any other sublets.
And do you get any support from these platforms like Airbnb? Do they have a policy in place to help identify these tenancy fraud issues, or again, is it just too difficult to identify?
No, once we find out, we will do our necessary investigations. Airbnb in particular doesn't always work with us, but we can get court orders to get that information from Airbnb. It's a lengthier process, but we can get it.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess that leads me on. We kind of covered this in part, but it'd be good to know exactly what's happening. Sarah, what is the process? What are we doing about tenancy fraud?
I mean, just to touch on the Airbnb situation, I think there is an onus on Airbnb and Booking.com and Gumtree to do more, to be more supportive and actually answer our queries and questions and actually have a little bit of ownership that they're allowing these properties to be sublet as well. They're not doing any checks to see if the person who's subletting is owned, whether they own that property or whether it is a social housing. So we are trying to put more onus on huge companies that are making millions of pounds. Actually, what are you doing to stop this happening, to stop people subletting social housing? So that is one of the key things. I think so. Southern Housing is obviously, we've got policies and procedures in place. We have expanded the team, so it's been Hema and Debs for years and years, bless them, like trying to do the job, but they've expanded it. So there's obviously me and Jessie now have come on board. We're doing the sort of key amnesty. We're doing a bit more like training. So there's been a dedicated digital training plan that's been put in place that we rolled out to all staff. So it's easier to spot tenancy fraud or to know when to report it to us or, what needs to be done. We're doing more comms about tenancy fraud. There is a page that you can go on as well on our website where you can actually report it easily. So if someone suspects something, they could do it anonymously. They can phone up obviously the main number, and then sometimes the queries do come through to us. And it is about staff being aware and also our residents being aware that this is happening. And if they see something suspicious, how can they report it? And it's about us, Southern Housing, finding an easiest way for people to report it. So I think we are definitely moving towards that, making it much more like bigger awareness, basically, that people can report and how they do it.
What are the? I mean, you've mentioned there the sign, the spotting it. Spotting it can, I imagine, can be. There might be some signs that you can look out for. Are there anything? Is there anything particular that you would say?
So it could be that if you're a neighbour and someone hasn't been in their property for a long time, or you think, oh, this property has been empty for months and months, I've not seen anyone coming or going, or you're seeing lots of different people coming and going, that could be something you could report and say that, you've got some concerns, there's lots of people coming and going. It could be that you're looking for a property yourself and the property has been advertised, and then you're a bit suspicious of actually, is this property theirs or not? So they could also report to us. It could be that you're already in the property and you get a letter through the door and, by accident you've subletted and you didn't realise, and it's got Southern Housing at the top of the letter. So then you could obviously contact us as well. Guys, have you got any other ideas of how you could spot or how people could report tenancy fraud?
I think it's never be afraid or think you don't have enough or you're not quite sure. Remember that we're the sort of experts in this. We don't expect the public to understand what tenancy fraud exactly is or how to spot it, but just go with your gut. If you think something's wrong, you're seeing lots of people turning up all the time. They've got suitcases. You're worried about who's in the community. Things have changed. It could be, that there is a lot of tenancy fraud going on. And actually, the people who are supposed to be living in the properties who used to be your neighbours are no longer there. You don't see them anymore. We have lots of ways of ruling in or ruling out whether a tenancy fraud has happened. So report it. Don't sit on it and think, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Unless you tell us, we won't know. And we have lots of ways we can tackle it. So please, always just report it to us, no matter how little.
I guess we'll go into more detail at the end about how you actually do report. But what actually does happen then when someone reports? Can they, if they want to do it anonymously, can they just send you the information and leave it there? There's no more involvement. How does it generally work? Deb?
If people report information to us, that will remain confidential, and they can provide it anonymously if they so wish to. If we do know who they are, it's likely, we'll call them back maybe for a bit more information. But once that referral comes to us, then it'll get allocated, and we take tenancy fraud referrals very seriously. And it will go to one of the officers in our dedicated team who are all very passionate about what we do for the organisation, and the effect that tenancy fraud has on our residents. So we will, as experienced officers, we work both with internal and external organisations to bring together strong evidence to be able to take a case forward, which can include both civil and criminal matters. And basically, we will look at whether we need to work together with a local authority to consider a joint prosecution case. We will obviously certainly look at trying to get the keys back, and consider whether a profit has been made, and if so, go to the court potentially for possession action and a lawful profit order.
And how does that investigation happen then? And where does it take you? I mean, it must. I mean, obviously, we don't expect you to go into the finite detail of how you do it, but it must involve all sorts of sifting through online material. What do you do?
I mean, each case is so different. That's the thing. So, I mean, the starting point, we are members of the National Anti-Fraud Network, which enables us to make certain checks on our properties and residents. We will certainly make open source inquiries to see what we can gather from what is on the internet. We will make data protection requests to organisations for further information. We'll work closely with the local authorities and look at what records they hold for the people within our property. So we have a vast resource to go to obtain evidence, land registry, Companies House. We will try and gather as much information as possible to make our cases as strong as we can. If we need to go to court, they're a strong case, and we hope to get a positive outcome.
How long does that usually take, and how difficult is it to get that prosecution at the end, to get those keys back?
Again, how long is a piece of string? Some people, I think one of my fastest cases, I got the keys back within 10 days of that person becoming aware that they were being investigated. Sometimes our residents won't know they're being investigated for quite some time, because we're busy gathering evidence before we approach them, and that could be formally as an interview under caution, or it might be sort of a visit, or we might call them to see them face to face, so that we can kind of basically show the evidence that we've gathered. If we have to go to court, sometimes it can be a lengthy process. The court process is a little bit out of our hands. It goes through our own internal legal team, and then if it goes through court and we're successful and we get an outright possession order, then we apply for bailiff warrants. So
it sounds like very. It
can be difficult.
You have to be dedicated.
Yes, we are very dedicated. We are very passionate, and I think those are what you need to be able to sort of work in this role, because it's not always easy, and sometimes you have to think outside the box in terms of where to go to get the evidence on a certain case. Because, like I say, each case is so different and sometimes follows a different pattern depending where that evidence takes you.
And just to add to that as well, I don't know, Debs, if you did say it, but obviously as part of our investigations also, we are out and about in the community. We are visiting these properties that are referred to us, because whilst something might look one way on paper and systems checks and desktop searches, actually out and about when you knock on that door, what is behind that door is also really, really important for you to continue forward in your investigation and to assess the overall background, etc., and what's happening. You need to be able to see that too.
And I mean, one of the other questions I was going to ask actually would be good if all of you could answer this question. Debs has sort of given her point of it, but what keeps you going? Because it obviously is difficult. I imagine you have successes, you have failures. You're coming up against people who are extremely difficult and maybe a bit aggressive or violent even. What is your? I'll start with you, Jessie. What drives you guys on? What drives you on every day?
What drives me? I've never even have to think about whether I'm driven or not, because I've been doing this job for 20 years, and literally returning homes to those in need who are on waiting lists. I mean, we've seen the stats, we've heard about it. England has, the housing waiting lists have grown from 3 to 5% over the last 12 months, with 1.33 million households on waiting lists for homes. Now, that's just so obscene, really, that everybody should be doing their bit to make these homes available. And the fact that we're just coming to work every day to make that possible and to help make that possible is worth doing. It's a no-brainer really for me and for the team. And I know Deb said that we're all passionate, but actually we exude passion. It's why we do the job, and why we're so happy that Southern Housing have actually got a dedicated team to deal with this, because and more people. I'm a member of the Tenancy Fraud Forum, and we're also always trying to encourage housing associations to get dedicated resource to tackle this issue, because this on its own won't fix the housing crisis, but it absolutely will help the housing crisis.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's my.
No, that's fantastic. I was going to say, because we've got Hema and also Sarah. You're new to the team, so Hema, you've been obviously doing this a long time, like Debs and Jessie. What keeps you going?
I don't really well. Yeah, I'm going to echo what Jessie has said and Debs. We are passionate. We love what we do, and it's getting people in like genuine need in our properties rather than someone who doesn't need the property. And it's making. I think we're trying to go forward in making safer communities as well. And when we get those properties back, we're going to get a family or a person in genuine need in that property. And there is such a satisfaction when we know we've done that. And sometimes getting from the start, getting that referral to the person, then the next family or person being handed that key to that property, there is a really nice feeling. I mean, honestly, it's everything what Jessie and Debs has said and this. So yeah, there is something very good about that, and I really do enjoy my job.
Fantastic.
A brilliant team that we work with, and that all adds to the day at Southern Housing as a fraud investigator.
And Sarah, what drew you into the role? Because you've previously worked in another capacity at Southern Housing. What drew you to tenancy fraud, to join the team?
I think it was just like, obviously the housing register, and I was probably at the other end of it where I was helping people try to get tenancies and there is no properties available. So it's similar to what Jessie and Hema said. And I think once I started looking at it, it was also the fact that, people are making thousands of pounds a year out of subletting our properties, which is, it is actually something that's funded, by the government and by housing associations, people in need. And these people are making money out of something that is, for people in need. So I think that is part of it as well, is, how dare you really try and make, money out of something that is so needed in society at the moment, and subletting and taking that profit for yourself. So it is, directly stealing, really, isn't it, off people's purse? Because that is what, we're here to help people in need, not to, fill the pockets of people that don't need that money. So I think that is one aspect of it as well, alongside sort of obviously the housing register and, giving houses to people in genuine need. That is one aspect of it. So I think for me, when you do come across these cases and people have been doing it for a long time and it hasn't been uncovered, and you uncover it and you look at how much they've made, or and the people that are actually in the properties that have unfortunately been subletted too, they don't realise as well. So they're victims of this crime as well. They're sitting in a house thinking they're in a secure tenancy, and then they're going to have to leave as well because they haven't got a secure tenancy. So it's the people that are also affected by the subletting as well is a massive aspect of it, and it's an unfair. It's unjust, that we then have to ask them to leave because they're not our residents, and then obviously take action against the resident. So I think there's different aspects to it. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting role and completely different to what I did before, but I'm really, really enjoying it. And it is lovely to be part of the team and sort of all work together and have loads of different ideas and, work alongside Hema and Debs and Jessie that have been doing it for years, and I'm the newbie, so
you're sure to definitely learn lots from these guys. It leads me to we obviously have a key amnesty campaign coming up in November. Jessie, do you want to talk us through a bit about what that is?
Yeah, a key amnesty is an initiative that many local authorities and housing associations can use and do use. And it's to encourage residents, tenants who may be committing tenancy fraud and are very aware that they're committing tenancy fraud, or may actually be thinking, I'm not sure about giving this tenancy back. I don't really need it, but I'm not so sure. Maybe I'll just keep it. This is to highlight that actually this is what tenancy fraud is. That houses aren't there for keeping in case. Houses are there for living in, and if you're not living in it, or you're making a profit of it, or you've abandoned it and you have just returned the keys, this is an opportunity for you to do the right thing, and to return your keys. And we in return will promise not to ask too many questions over this month of November only, and you can walk away, basically return your keys, and we will have that property back. As the girls said earlier, legal proceedings can be lengthy, it can be time consuming and resource intensive, and actually if you just return your keys, it really helps everybody. It helps your community, it helps your neighbours, it helps us all to free up some homes that are much needed in this housing crisis. So yeah, that's what the amnesty is, and we're excited about it.
And so what would happen normally? What can happen to someone who's found guilty of committing tenancy fraud?
Yes. Well, there's two elements to tenancy fraud. There's we may take civil action, which if we have the evidence, we always will, to recover the homes, and that is to serve notices to end the tenancy because of breaches such as subletting. But of course, subletting is also a criminal offence since 2013. The Prevention of Social Housing Fraud Act makes it a criminal offence. Subletting. You can find yourself in serious trouble if you're subletting. You can end up in prison if you're subletting. And not only that, but you also will have to pay back any of the monies that you've made through the subletting. So this isn't a really, it's no big deal situation. Subletting is a real serious situation. And for November alone, we are saying, okay, just return your keys and we won't take any action through that month, unless, of course, our existing investigation is ongoing with one of the team and a tenant. Then, of course, that's not okay, we won't take any action now because it's November. We will. But in new cases where we haven't been investigated, this is the month to do the right thing and hand those keys back so that somebody can have a home.
Thank you. Can you sort of talk me a little bit about how a resident can do this if they are committing fraud during the month of November and they don't want to suffer the consequences? They just want to hand the keys over. How do they go about doing that?
So you can just, we're asking for residents to post the keys back unless there's an easy option, and your housing officer can identify that, or your customer service staff can identify that. But we're asking for keys to be posted to our address in the Kent office, which was there'll be lots of publication on our website about what that address is. Post them back. We do request, of course, that an address of the property is included and a notice of termination of the tenancy, to make it streamlined so that we can recover that property quickly without any legal action. And you can do that pretty easy. Look on our website about doing that, or contact one of our team, fill in an online form. However you want to contact us, we're available and we're able, all our staff are primed with giving you advice to make this a seamless process through November that you can return your keys without any questions.
Lovely. And the same goes for a resident who suspects that this might be happening. Is it the same process? It's contacting us through the website or through the usual channels?
Yeah, we have our details all over the website. We have our own email address in our team. You can contact us, ask to be put through to any of the Tenancy Fraud Team. We can take, as Deb said earlier, and any reports anonymously. Any information is vital. And I think I said before, no matter how irrelevant or relevant you think it may be, it could be very relevant to us. We're able to back that up. We're able to put some meat in the bones to these cases. So please remember that this isn't a victimless crime. This is really, really important to your communities, that you report what's going on in your communities. If somebody is subletting their home and making thousands of pounds in profit, whilst family members, your own family members, may be deprived of somewhere to live, then why are we allowing that to happen in our communities? We have to report this. This is a serious issue. We need those homes back.
Absolutely. I mean, one question that I haven't asked actually, Debs, I think we were sort of talking about this, was can you just give us a rough idea of how many cases you guys are dealing with, and how many successes you've had in the past year?
Well, I think last year we had about 30 properties back, keys back. Before that, it was probably about.
This year alone, we've had 26 so far.
And this year to date from April, we've got 26 properties back. We also have lots of cases with our legal team that we believe are strong cases and hope for a successful outcome. Some of those include unlawful profit orders as well, which obviously is money back to the organisation if they're successful through the courts. And if people own properties, we can put charges on properties as well through the court. Caseload wise, we all hold a current caseload at the moment, probably about 30 each, but this will be increasing as we become more proactive and take on projects individually and as a team. So yeah, we're very busy, and yeah, we will do as much as we can to get as many properties back.
Yeah, if I just add to that, we because we're a newly expanded team, we haven't, of course, the girls haven't been always able to tackle everything, such as every application on succession, for example, to be checked. And whilst that's housing officers do their best to check everything, of course, they're not qualified in what to spot, and we are, and we see that that's something that we have to take on, because succession fraud in itself is a really high risk area. A recent report of a housing association found 15% of their recoveries for the year were failed succession claims, and that's because people don't want to return properties that they should, because they're not entitled to succeed. And this is also, this amnesty and awareness program is to highlight that succession, just because it's a family home, unfortunately, it doesn't mean that you can just keep it. There is a procedure and there's a process, and that has to be, allocation of properties has to go to those deservedly who need them, and not who can just stay there and go under the radar, hopefully, and not tell us. So it's really important that people who don't need properties return them to us, so that we can do the right thing with them.
This has been a really interesting and enlightening discussion, and I really hope it will encourage those committing the fraud to hand back their keys, and anyone who suspects it's happening to contact us. We'll post up the detail of how to report and how to hand back keys with this podcast. So I'd like to say thank you again to Jessie, Deborah, Hema and Sarah for joining us.
Thank you.
This is the Southern Housing Podcast. Please do follow us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for more great episodes. Yeah.